into doing what we're doing right here, to the exact T. Just, feel free to change things up. As an artist, you're free to change things up, do things the way you want to do it. You're the artist. Okay, now we're going to take, just have a mechanical pencil, no big deal, real simple. Again, you can just pencil in a few ideas if you want at first. You can be real loose about it. Hold your pencil like this, do some loose, maybe drawing like this if you're not so much used to the traditional drawing, like, holding your pencil like this. You can also do a real loose approach, hold your pencil real loosely and just kind of get some ideas down. Whatever you feel comfortable with, that's fine. So I'm going to go with some lines here. And I'm just moving my brush a little, my pencil here kind of quickly. I want to make sure I get this interesting shapes in a little bit. Again, use the flowers or whatever you want. You're the artist, and you make your decisions as you want to, as to what you're going to draw and paint. Okay, I'm going to get more if you find you do a line that you don't like, or a couple little pencil lines that you're not too happy with, no problem. Just you do a kneaded eraser, which are fantastic. They don't create any crumbs. This is real important to use a kneaded eraser versus some of the other erasers that create crumbs, like those pink ones, or there's some other types of erasers. So a kneaded eraser is real important when you're doing watercolors, because when you're erasing a little bit here and there, you don't want to leave any crumbs on your paper, because this way when you go to paint, they're just going to kind of be an issue with making some marks on your paper. So let's keep that in mind. No big deal. And I'm just going to keep going here and and I just put some tiny dots with my pencil just to remember where I want to put a couple splashes. Now here I'm indicating where I'm going to put some darks, so I can also sketch in a little dark like that. This is another important point when you're watercolor painting and you're drawing first before you paint. Always remember, does this make sense? Remember, if you're going to go over with a darker color and you're looking at a reference photo, or you're looking at something you've set up across from you and you're saying, yeah, that's a pretty dark there, you could do a little sketching like this with your pencil to make a little bit of a dark. And this way you don't forget to put that dark into your painting. And so I'm doing that. I'm just going to make some dark pencil lines here and there, because I know I'm definitely going with some darks over the top of these spots here. Think of them as, little spots of color that are going to be darks. And if I put them on the paper like this with a little bit of sketching, you're going to be fine. That should be good. You could put a little more, but this is, again, I'm doing some daisies and I'm making them a little more exciting. This might not be exactly what I'm seeing in real life, but in essence, with our painting, our watercolor painting and our drawings and things like that, in our art, we always want to make things a little more exciting. Try to think of it that way, as you want to bring more excitement into your painting, because if we just draw it exactly the way we see it in real life or from a photo, whatever we're working from, it's not going to be quite as, so we want to exaggerate excitement in our paintings, whatever it might be. Maybe it's the wind. So if you're doing some weeds and some grasses, make those weeds and grasses blowing, really well with the angles of the grasses and weeds across your painting. Whereas if you just went with weeds sticking up straight like this, that wouldn't be as exciting. So let's add some more excitement. Does that make sense? We're adding more excitement into our artwork because that's going to make more of an impact when people look at our artwork. They're going to go, ooh, wow, look at that. It's got movement to it. It's got excitement to it. So let's remember that when we paint. And let's carry on here. We're going to wet this paper, flood this paper with water, wet and wet. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to take I have a Da Vinci square brush. It's probably like a 2-inch brush, I would say. And I'm just going to flood that water on there. Have fun. Have fun with this. Just glide that water on there. And when you do that, remember, at least go like 2 coats of water. So really get this good with water. I'm putting on like 2 good coats of water until I see it sort of like puddling and lots of shine on there and lots of gloss. So you almost want this to look like all glossy, like ice or glass. Just like that. And then what we do, we just flood that paper with water and let it get soaked, the paper. Again, wet and wet. Just like that. And then we let it sit on there. And the key with wet and wet is if you're going to work like this, there's different ways you can do this, and I'm going to show different videos on wet and wet. For right now, I'm using the taped approach where I tape my paper down really good. I tape my paper down really good with some good artist tape, some drafting tape, and then I do my drawing, and then I put on my coats of water, plenty of water, flood the paper. Like that, have some fun there, get that water on there, flood it in, make sure it's soaked into the paper. Just like that. Then we take a paper towel, and as the water starts to run down, we have a slight angle on our paper here. I'm working on a board, a masonite board that I went to the local hardware store, and they cut boards for me. I gave them the measurements. I said I need 24 by 32 or 36, whatever it was. You just, whatever kind of board you need, whatever size, you just let them know, and they'll trim it down for you right to the size you need it. You can get different sizes. You can say, give me, one 24 by 36, give me another 12 by 18, 18 by 12, and they'll be more than happy. They trim them down for you right in the shop, in your local big box store, your Home Depot, your Lowe's, and they'll trim down your masonite board, 1/8 inch masonite. And I'm using this smooth side. I usually work on masonite most times. With all my paintings, I usually put everything on masonite or foam board. So we just try to pick up some of the excess water as it flows down. And then we just wait a few minutes or so, and you'll start to see that it starts to get a satin finish. The gloss goes away, and it becomes like a satin finish, and that's when we start going in with our colors. So that's a real important part to this. If you try to go in and start painting when there's the glossy look, the paint is just going to make a big mess. So we're going to let this water soak into the paper, and then when you look at it and you see it kind of has like a dull shine, that's when you're ready to start putting some paint on there. And we're getting to that point where it's getting kind of, it usually takes 1 or 2 minutes or so, and then it's pretty good. So we'll just give this a few more minutes. I'm going to get prepped here. I made sure I have when I start out, before I do a painting, I like to mention this, I get my fresh squeeze paint into my palette. I also give it a little spritzer of water, spritzer bottle, spritz my paint. Also I fill up any wells that might be low on paint. Key is to make sure your paint is soft and wet and goopy. And this way, when you go in with your brush, it's nice and just like you squeeze it out of the tube of the paint. When you squeeze it out of the tube, that's how it's got to be when you're painting, because you need that soft, moist paint. We can't use hard paint. If your paint's hard inside your palette, then you have to squeeze more paint in there and add some spritzer to it, some water, fresh, clean water, and then it'll work for you a lot better. Okay, and we're gonna just and don't worry about it if the paper buckles. Do not worry if the paper buckles a little bit. That's work around that. Don't worry about it. You can deal with that. That's not a big deal. I'll show you another technique in the next coming weeks or so where you can kind of avoid that. But the only issue with that is to avoid having the paper buckle a little bit occasionally. Then you're kind of stuck with using more wet paper, and it takes a little more time. I'll show you how to do it, no big deal. But for this type of painting we're going to do now, we're using the tape method around our painting. And then we make sure the paper is soaked completely with water, and then we let it dry off a little bit. Okay, now you can choose your brushes. I use round brushes. You can use square brushes if you want to maybe do some of the outer perimeter of the painting, but I like to use the round brushes. And these are Kolinsky Sable round brushes. And let's start thinking about, we're going to use some blue, cerulean blue, cobalt blue, French ultramarine blue. Nice and goopy. Look at that. Nice and soft paint. You got to have that soft paint. Moist, soft paint. Fresh squeezed. Got to have it to get the colors we want. Always remember, too, when you're painting, if you're adding water to your paint at all, it's going to dry lighter. So you got to go a little darker than what you think as you paint. That's a very important part of watercolor. You got to go darker, and this way, when it dries, you have that color you want. And we're going to do some purple too here, up here in the corner. Let's put some purple up top here. All right. Okay, so we got plenty of paint. Again, it looks a little dark, but it's going to get light. It's going to lighten up a lot. No big deal. Let's do some strokes in a star pattern. So here, let's do a star pattern. So when we're doing our paint around the flowers, let's say these are the flowers. Let's say this is our rectangle here, and these are our flowers. Let's make a star pattern with the paint around the perimeter, so that it looks like a beautiful, like radiating feel around our flower, like that. Okay, let's do that. That's going to be more exciting. We got to think more. Let's think more exciting. Some splashes too. Let's get some splashes on there. See that? Brush strokes just have fun with this. Do not feel like you're stifled, or just have fun. Blot, tissue, blot. If you go over any spots you think you might have a problem with, you want more whites or more lights, just tap up a little bit of paint. I'm telling you, those real free, fun brush strokes, those look the best. We don't want to take little like this. We don't want to do that. We want to have fun, free. Those brush strokes are going to show up, and someone's going to know that we're trying to agonize over things too much. Let's not do that. Let's just have fun and flick the paint around. That's going to look better. And again, if you go over a spot that you want to keep lighter, just tap it up a little bit with some paint, some tissue, like that. There we go. All right. And then maybe we'll mix in some warm colors, some raw sienna, raw umber. I'm going to splash some warmer color in there. Just to, mix in some warmer colors, some earth tones in there with the blue. Keep it interesting. There we go. This is the fun part with wet and wet, because you kind of work at a pace of just relaxing, a relaxing pace, and you're in control. And you have to let things dry. You're not trying to go too fast. Again, some exciting movements. All right. Let's see if we can raw sienna. Maybe a little bit of cad lemon yellow there. Just a little bit of interesting, cool yellow. There we go. We're going to put in a couple warm colors in there. Cadmium lemon yellow. Okay, now what you'll notice is beautiful wet and wet. The watercolor is just really looking fantastic with the diffusion of the water and colors. And then we can go in and we'll get some greens, sap green, olive green. Again, look at that wet. I'm picking that up. See that? That's what we need, that wet goopy paint. Maybe a little bit of French ultramarine blue to make a darker blue here. And then what we can do is we can start putting in some of our darks and see how it looks. And it looks fine. Perfect. Okay, so now I can see that my darks are going to go in fine because I'm using really thick paint like this. See, that's just straight paint right out of the tube. French ultramarine blue, sap green, olive green. And then I'm flicking on the paint. I'm careful when I do my points with the point of the brush, but then after that I kind of let it be a little more free. And then we can always cad lemon yellow. We can mix that in a little bit, that cad lemon yellow. We could splash a little bit on there. A little more water, like that. There we go. Some here too as well. We mix it around the same colors. Whenever you're adding colors, just remember, try to add it around the painting. Does that make sense? To harmonize the painting, add some around the other parts of the painting too. The same color, whatever you're going to use. Try to move it around the picture, around the painting. And we're going to use that blue again. Maybe we'll mix in some green, some olive green with that blue. Keep it mostly blue. And again, nice, exciting brush strokes. Maybe a little bit of red, some exciting alizarin crimson. Let's do it. Wow, that's exciting. We just have to put some a little bit everywhere. Again, your colors, you want to move them. You want to put them around the painting. If you're going to add them over here, add them up here too. Like your alizarin crimson. Now you see I'm adding that into the composition here. Move it around, get it into other spots. Move it around the painting so that your painting looks like it's not lopsided with colors. And then if you have a problem again with paint bleeding into other areas, there we go. Tap it out. Okay, now you see, look at that. Oh, that looks great. The diffused colors of watercolor working their magic. Again, sap green, French ultramarine blue, maybe a little burnt umber there just to make that a little more interesting, darker. Some splashes. If you add splashes up top, add them down here too. Burnt umber, French ultramarine blue, sap green. There we go. And That looks exciting. Again, completely have fun with this. The thing is, try this technique out. If it doesn't come out perfect the first time, no problem. Keep working at it. That's the point of this, is to try a new technique. You know, I mostly paint a drier technique most times, like an alla prima. But I do like to paint wet and wet too as well. It's a lot of fun. I used to practice it a lot years ago, and I'm starting to really have fun with it again. And I want to try to like encourage everyone to practice with it, because it also helps your skills no matter what techniques you do use when you're painting. Does that make sense? If you're practicing other techniques than what you ordinarily, use, it's going to help you to understand how the paint and the water works and the paper and everything. So really, in essence, the more techniques you practice, the better you're going to get at watercolor. So again, we're using that star pattern. Again, if you see any leaves or things that are being overrun by paint and water, just blot them up. Most times you can blot them up, no problem. Okay, we're going to actually blow dry our paper a little bit just to dry it off. Okay, now, again, I've been mentioning this throughout this painting and throughout this video. Don't worry about if it's not perfect, if your flowers don't look perfect. Wet and wet is like a really challenging technique because it takes time to get used to working with the timing of everything. So like maybe I went too fast in the beginning and then it got a little out of control here, and I lost some of my flower petals. Here you can see maybe some of the paint infiltrated into my flower petals, but that's no big deal. You can practice it until you get it where you can time everything pretty well, So again, I'm trying to go a little quicker, obviously, because we're on a video here. I can't take 4 hours to do this. You'll shut it off, right? So, but the main idea is learning the timing of the drying of the paper. That's all you have to remember, is give your paper time to dry, take a couple breaks, or just hang out in front of your painting and watch it as it dries. And then you can see how once it gets drier, you can add some more colors to it and some more paint without it affecting and bleeding into other areas. So here I'm going to add some more dark there. Maybe I'll put some dark there. You know, you want to add some darks here and there. Maybe some there too. And there's some here. So you can kind of have fun with it. And then I'll add some olive green, sap green, olive green, and maybe some a little bit of alizarin crimson too. And I'll do some splashing over here. And then if I add splashing up here, I'm definitely going to try to add it, you know, over here too. And over here a little bit. And then a little bit of that alizarin crimson. Let's add some alizarin crimson there. Same with over here. And then you just, what's fun about this, really, the wet and wet technique is so fun because you can work at it and sort of take your time and you just keep working at it. As the painting dries, you keep adding to the composition until it's perfect the way you want it to look. So I have some greens down here. Again, I might have covered up some of my white petals a little bit too much, but you can shape things around to make it look more interesting, the flower petals, like that. Again, have fun with it. Don't worry if it doesn't come out perfect the first time. So here are some green leaf shapes. You can add some green leaf shapes here and there. Then we can take a beautiful fine, a nice, we'll get some darks. We're going to use a needlepoint brush, French ultramarine blue, burnt umber, and some alizarin crimson, working our paint till we get a nice dark. And then since it's a flower painting, we'll add some green into that so that we have that feeling of the stems, the green in there. And you can add some nice stems. And that'll sometimes really add a lot of interesting feel to this because it takes away some of the, distracts the person from maybe complaining about the petals of the flower. You know, someone might look at this painting and go, oh, the petals don't look good or whatever. Well, no, you put some of these beautiful stems and things like that, and then there's no complaining because they look at that and go, how wonderful that looks. And there we have it. So always remember, keep practicing on these. Try the wet and wet technique is a lot of fun. Don't worry if your first 1 or 2 or 5 or 6 paintings don't come out good, or maybe you're a pro at it and you'll do it the first time and it'll look great, you know? Whatever. It's all good. And we'll peel some tape off here. Main thing is you have fun, right? Let's have fun with our watercolors. You know, that's out of all things we remember, let's have fun painting. That's our time when we can have fun. We have all the other stuff in our lives we got to worry about. Let's not make watercolor painting one of the worries. Let's make it the fun thing we do. And that looks much better now. We have a Look at that. How can we complain, right? We have beautiful white petals, the daisy, some beautiful bright, exciting color there, some yellows and golds and browns in there, earth colors, earth tones. We have that beautiful wet and wet look with all the blues and purples and reds just diffused and looking gorgeous. And then we have our details on here, our stems and twigs in our little composition, which give it even more excitement and impact. Again, let's have fun with our watercolors, right? Let's have fun. That's the main thing. All right, everyone, we'll see you on the next video. Again, keep trying this flower exercise here with the wet and wet, because it really will, it gets better each time you do it. And this one here I'm pretty happy with, but you know, I realized too, I could have made some of the petals a little better on this one, but for the most part, it's not always easy. We just have to work at it, and we'll eventually get a perfect painting that we like, and then we can put that in a frame or something. Okay? All right. Let's have fun, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.